The bleachers didn't exactly collapse. They more eased themselves down like a tired old man sitting without bending his knees. It began with this low, rolling groan everyone at the Maple Dunes HOA Community Spirit Stadium assumed was thunder. The first summer storm swept over the subdivision, rain hammering the field in heavy curtains, lightning flickering behind the brand-new scoreboard that proudly declared, "Welcome to Maple Dunes, home of the Dune Dogs." I was standing beside the concession setup, which was really just a folding table stacked with Costco hot dogs when I saw the whole thing go sideways. The far corner of the field sagged, as if someone had poked a hole in reality. Those shiny aluminum bleachers tilted a couple inches, then a few more, then began sinking as the turf underneath liquefied into pure mud soup. People started shrieking. Plastic seats slid forward in slow-motion waves as the entire stadium bleachers, turf, and even the cinder-block announcer's booth began melting downward like the earth had decided to eat it. A kid pointed with his whole arm and yelled, "The ground is eating it." The announcer's booth shifted, cracked, and snapped in half with this wet, nasty crunch. Mud blasted through the 50-yard line like a busted geyser. That brand-new HO, a funded multi-use performance field, slurped downward, one whole end vanishing into the black, reeking sludge below. Over the storm and screaming, you could still hear HOA President Lorna Fisk shouting, her voice ragged with fury. "Stay calm. This is settling. This is normal settling." Next to me, the city building inspector who I had personally invited and who only came because I'd nagged him for weeks, just stared with rain dripping off his hard hat. "Mr. Ryder," he said slowly, "I thought you were exaggerating about the soil." The announcer's booth roof tipped sideways and disappeared into the hole with a belch of swamp gas. I crossed my arms. "Told you," I said. "It's a wetland, or as I call it, a collapse zone. My name is Calvin Ryder, and when this whole mess began, all I really wanted was to be left alone with my frogs. I'm a civil engineer by trade, but what I actually love is reclaiming trash land and turning it useful. When I found this weird wedge-shaped lot on the edge of the Cranberry Ridge subdivision cheap, overgrown, labeled non-buildable drainage, parcel I was thrilled. It was perfect. No neighbors on two sides, a half-acre of cattails and muck, a seasonal pond, and a chorus of tree frogs that sounded like rain made of marbles. The realtor called it low-value swampland. I called it Calvin's future peace sanctuary. The HOA, however, called it Phase 3 amenities, expansion opportunity. Cranberry Ridge came with all the usual suburb starter pack features: beige houses with slightly different porches, a pool nobody used because the water temperature was always between acceptable seasons, an email newsletter called the Cranberry Chronicle, and of course, a president. Lorna Fisk, late 40s, permanent spray tan glow, suspiciously white teeth, and always wearing a visor and Cranberry Ridge HOA polo, like a uniform. She had the vibe of someone who would write a complaint letter to the weather for raining during her block party. She came to my door the morning after I moved in, flanked by 2 board members, smiling like she was about to recruit me for a pyramid scheme. "Calvin, welcome to the Ridge," she sang. "We're so excited to have new residents, especially ones with lots of budding enthusiasm for our planned community recreation complex." She said complex, the way a priest says holy sanctuary. I blinked. "Planned what?" "Community recreation complex," she repeated, handing me a glossy trifold brochure that looked like it was made on a home printer. "Future site of the Cranberry Ridge Stadium, event lawn, and family performance pavilion." The rendering were bleachers, a mini football field, and a stage neatly placed on top of my lot. I looked from the pamphlet to the soggy patch of cattails and slurping muck outside my window. "You know that's a wetland, right?" I said. "My deed labels it a drainage parcel. I bought it." She laughed like I'd told a silly joke. "Oh, those old labels are from before the developer cleaned up the area. The land is merely unused. The HOA has acquired beneficial interests through long-term planning." "That's not a legal term," I said. "It's in our vision statement," she replied triumphantly. I tried to be polite. I explained I had plans. Native plants, a little boardwalk, maybe a pond deck. She nodded, then said, "Of course you can do little hobby things around the edges, but the community needs a stadium." You'll still enjoy it as one of many. My eye twitched. I own it, I said. Technically, she said, for now. And that's when I realized I hadn't just bought a swamp, I'd bought myself a full-time war. Lorna's Annex the Swamp campaign started with fake friendliness and slid into fantasy. First, she sent what she called a courtesy notice. Dear Mr. Ryder, the board is concerned about stagnant water and unsightly reeds on your parcel. They posed a mosquito hazard and did not align with the vision for Cranberry Ridge. I replied with a polite email and attached soil reports and FEMA flood maps. Dear HOA, the stagnant water is a regulated wetland and designated stormwater retention basin. It cannot be filled or altered without city permits. Regards, Calvin. No response. Instead, the next Cranberry Chronicle had a full-page spread titled Our Future Stadium, taking shape with a CGI rendering of kids playing soccer right where my frogs lived. Underneath, pending minor title clarifications. I went to a board meeting. The clubhouse smelled like coffee, dry erase fumes, and simmering resentment. Lorna presided from a folding table like a traffic court judge. During open comments, I stood. So, I said, about the stadium drawn on my lot. Lorna smiled thinly. Yes, you live next to the future complex. Don't worry, Calvin, it won't be as loud as you imagine. That's not my issue, I said, holding up my deed. Your plan shows your stadium on my property. She waved this away. We have an understanding with the original developer. There's an email. Is there a deed? I asked. Well, not yet, but the board secretary leaned toward his mic. Lorna, the attorney said, we shouldn't proceed without easements. She cut him off. Our attorney is overly cautious. If you trespass, build, or interfere with the wetland, I will document and report every incident to the city and the state environmental office. She gave me the look people give raccoons before trying to pet them. Calvin, Cranberry Ridge is a community. Sometimes we must sacrifice for the greater good. Surely you don't want to be the person who kills the stadium. I left to the sound of her calling me resistant to progress for the minutes. Over the next month, survey flags appeared on my lot without permission. A landscaper showed up, claiming the HOA hired us to clear this brush. I sent him away with a copy of my deed. He apologized like he'd barged into a stranger's shower. Lorna began calling the area our future field, email blasts and tossing around terms like eminent domain energy and community necessity, as if repeating them made them legal. I escalated. Installed game cameras. Laminated private property wetland signs citing city ordinance. Filed a notice with the planning department refusing consent for HOA amenities. 2 weeks later, the cameras caught her. Lorna, in capris and visor. Slogging through cattails with a tape measure, directing 2 teenagers to spray paint lines. This will be the 50-yard line, she declared, ankle deep in muck. It's going to be iconic. The kids stared at his sinking shoe. It's kinda squishy. She beamed. We'll install drainage. I saved the footage twice and sent a copy to my lawyer. The day the backhoes arrived, I met them at the boundary with coffee and copies of my deed. 3 flatbeds, 2 skid steers, and 1 overly enthusiastic contractor rolled up at 7 a.m. Engines roaring, Lorna standing before them like General Patton with a color-coded binder. Good morning, she called. Isn't this exciting, Calvin? Today, we break ground on the stadium. I handed the lead contractor a folder. Before you break anything, look at this. You're about to trespass on my property and violate 3 environmental regulations. He flipped through it. Confusion, realization, horror. You own this whole parcel? He asked. Yep. And the HOA doesn't? Correct. Pointed to a bright yellow sign the city had posted. Designated wetland. Requires permit. You got a permit? He asked Lorna. She laughed oddly. We don't need one. The developer cleared it. The developer doesn't own it, I said. I do. This is part of the drainage system. If you dig, the city will come running. And when they do, I have photos of you directing crews on posted wetland. The contractor sighed. Ma'am, I need something in writing from the city. I'm not getting fined for this. It is unacceptable. She snapped. We're behind schedule. The community expects a stadium, and they'll expect a refund, he said, turning his trucks around. That's when Lorna shifted from smug to unhinged. She sent mass emails accusing certain residents, Mav sabotaging community progress. She told people my parcel was basically common space and that I was hoarding it. Then she made her fatal move. She hired a cheaper crew, the kind that doesn't ask questions, and scheduled them. For a day, she thought I'd be out of town. I wasn't. My car was gone, yes. But my neighbor texted me a picture of heavy equipment heading for my lot. I was 3 blocks away drinking coffee, waiting for this exact stunt. By the time I returned, a skid steer was already tearing into the wetland edge, dumping black muck into a truck. Lorna stood in the middle, waving her. He paced the torn-up area, snapping photos. "You've weakened the berm," he muttered. "Brilliant. One hard rain, and this whole corner could shift." Lorna rolled her eyes. "It's dirt. Dirt settles. It'll hold." He stared at her. "Ma'am, this dirt is the only thing restraining runoff from 300 rooftops. If it gives way, the whole section slumps." Then he turned to me. "Mr. Ryder, I'm issuing a formal violation notice to the HOA. Expect follow-up about corrective work." Remediation? Honestly, such dramatic language. She had absolutely no grasp of what was about to hit. The violation packet landed like a brick lobbed through the clubhouse door. The city's letter spelled everything out in bold: unauthorized excavation in a regulated stormwater basin, damage to a protected wetland buffer, undermining of a designated berm without engineering approval. The fines demanded a certified restoration company, a full repair plan, and an engineering stability report. Then the state environmental office piled on their own notice, full of delightful phrases like potential downstream impacts and statutory penalties. The HOA board scrambled into an emergency session. Lorna tried her best spin move. "This is all a misunderstanding," she insisted to a room full of irritated homeowners who had just discovered their dues, would now be funding wetland restoration instead of the promised splash pad. "The city is completely overreacting." One resident, she shot me a glare so sharp I felt windburn, has been feeding them exaggerated claims. I stood, waited until the muttering died down, then held up the city's own photographs. "These were taken by the inspector," I said. "Here is the hole you dug. Here is the undermined berm. Here is the posted sign your crew flattened. This isn't about me. It's about your president ignoring every warning and charging ahead." A man in a golf shirt raised his hand. "Is it true the land is his? Like legally his?" "Yes," I said, handing out copies of my plat map and deed. "It has never been HOA property. The developer couldn't dedicate it because it's part of the drainage system. So they sold it to me." The treasurer flipped through his copy, went sheet white, and whispered, "Oh my God. We've been listing this as an amenity site in every annual report." Another woman stood. "Lorna, did you know we didn't own it?" "She's known for months," I said. "I've emailed her every document repeatedly." The murmuring turned hostile, words like mismanagement, lawsuit, and insurance premiums rolling through the room. The board voted over Lorna's furious protests to halt all stadium plans and comply with the city's restoration order. Meanwhile, my lawyer filed something special: a formal notice of intent to sue for trespass, encroachment, and property damage plus full restoration costs above the city's requirements. Native plantings, erosion control, hydrology corrections, the whole package that triggered the HOA's insurance company. The adjuster woman with the exhausted aura of someone who negotiates with fools for a living met us at the edge of the chewed-up wetland. So she said. Flipping through paperwork, the board president authorized illegal construction on land they don't own, ignored posted city warnings, and dug into a stormwater basin. Lorna forced a smile. "We had an understanding with the developer, which is irrelevant," the adjuster cut in. "The policy excludes intentional illegal acts. The HOA itself is liable for fines, repairs, and possibly Mr. Ryder's damages." "Meaning?" the treasurer asked weakly. "A special assessment," she said, "unless you prefer draining your reserves." The board looked ready to faint in synchronized formation. My leverage was locked in. All I needed now was rain. Restoration started, stalled, limped forward. Then stalled again, contractors grumbling, while the city emailed increasingly irritated updates. By the time the HOA shoved through a watered-down stadium plan smaller field, fewer seats. No real foundation slapped onto the partly stored ground, the inspector's patience was hanging by a thread. "This isn't what we approved," he told Lorna during the walkthrough. "It's temporary seating," she said breezily. "Just for the Cranberry Kickoff Classic. It's still concentrated load on questionable soil. You need engineering certification," before she cut him off with a brittle laugh. "Engineers overthink everything. It's just damp ground. We compacted it." The compacted soil squelched ominously under his boot. He leaned toward me later and muttered, "If we get a real storm, that's going to move." Put that exact sentence into my report. And then, on the morning of the Cranberry Kickoff Classic, the sky granted my tiny, spiteful wish. Thunderheads stacked like a god gathering receipts. The air went heavy and still. Parents set up folding chairs. Kids ran drills on the pristine new turf. The announcers boxed a cinder block shack sitting on nothing, resembling a footing, stood like a tribute to overconfidence. I spotted the inspector in the crowd. He had happened to stop by. I may have replied all to Lorna's event announcement with him still on the CC line. The first thick drops fell during the national anthem. By halftime, the downpour was biblical. Water surged exactly where every city map predicted, straight toward my low, recently disturbed parcel. The berm already weakened from Lorna's illegal digging, and patched with cheap backfill, began to seep, then slump. The far sideline, the one with the big bleachers and the announcer's booth, tilted almost imperceptibly. But I saw it. The inspector saw it. Even Lorna, vibrating under her poncho, saw it. "It's fine," she yelled. "Fields get soggy." Then the ground under the bleachers liquefied. Not explosively, just slow, relentless physics. The aluminum structure lurched, then dropped one whole corner into the muck. People screamed, grabbed kids, skidded down the slick turf. A few fell into the mud, but everyone escaped with nothing worse than ruined laundry. The announcer's box, perched on slightly higher but equally unstable ground, cracked along a block seam. One side slid, then another. The whole structure rotated and sagged like it was being fed to the earth. The new turf wrinkled up like peeling wallpaper as water bubbled beneath it. A deep swamp gas burp echoed under the rain. The scoreboard flickered, sparked, died. "That," the inspector said calmly, rain dripping off his nose, "is structural failure due to inadequate subgrade on unsuitable soils. In simpler terms, you built a stadium on a swamp." Parents dragged their kids away as a section of the bleacher frame vanished into the ooze. A little kid with smeared face paint wailed, "The field is sinking." Lorna stood in the chaos, poncho plastered to her, hair collapsing, mascara streaking. "This is not my fault," she screamed. "This is sabotage. He poisoned the ground." She pointed straight at me. The inspector stared at her, then at me, then at the devouring mud. "Lady," he said, "the only thing poisoning this ground is your decision-making." The sheriff, who had shown up earlier because HOA drama tends to attract thunder, stepped beside him. "That engineering report you filed," he said to me, "is going to make an interesting appendix to our investigation." I pulled my hood tighter and watched the Cranberry Ridge Community Spirit Stadium sink. Slowly and poetically into the wetland Lorna had insisted was just unused land. I didn't say I told you so. I didn't need to. The mud delivered it for me. After the Collapse Classic, Cranberry Ridge went into pure panic. The city condemned the entire stadium zone, unsafe, closed, trespass punishable by fine. The state environmental office reopened their case with the beautiful phrase, "substantial additional disturbance." The HOA's insurer, already annoyed, now had to juggle property damage, minor injuries, and a months-long record of ignored warnings. They sent a letter that basically said, "Having reviewed your president's choices." Absolutely not. The special assessment to cover fines, cleanup, and proper restoration infuriated everyone. Another emergency meeting was held. This time the crowd came loaded for battle. Someone brought a giant poster of the sinking bleachers with the caption "Vision." Statement: a motion to remove Lorna as president hit the floor before she even finished saying, "We're all in this together. Point of order." She snapped. "You can't." They absolutely could, and did. Her exit package came with conditions from the city and insurer. Banned from the board, banned from any construction or compliance committees, required to attend governance training. It's forbidden from claiming to represent the HOA in any official capacity. My lawsuit settled shortly after. The HOA threw clenched teeth to cover full professional restoration of my wetland, graded berm, native plants, erosion controls, my legal fees, and official county filings confirming my parcel is private, not HOA property, and never will be. They also had to send a community-wide letter. The association previously identified a certain parcel as a future stadium site. This was incorrect. The parcel is privately owned and is a critical stormwater feature. We apologize for the confusion. The city fined the HOA $47,000. Environmental restoration was another $63,000. My settlement added $22,000 in total. Lorna's grand vision statement cost the community $132,000. When the treasurer read the final number aloud, Lorna, forced to sit in the back row with other ex-board members, went pale. Her hands shook around the folding chair. $132,000, he repeated, staring at her. All because someone believed vision statements outranked property law. Shh. Lorna opened her mouth, closed it, then simply walked out. No words, no defense. 2 weeks later, special assessment bills went out. Each homeowner owed $873. My mailbox filled with sarcastic "thank you" cards. Lorna Fisk never attended another meeting. She sold her house 4 months later and moved to a condo with zero HOA oversight. The day she moved out, someone placed a tiny plastic toy stadium on her curb beside the for sale sign.